Hello everyone. We will deliver the news that became a hot topic on August 7, 2023. Federal agency given deadline to explain why deadly Nevada wild horse roundup should continue. 3 minutes read. A judge has asked federal land managers to explain why they should be allowed to continue capturing more than 2,500 wild horses in northeastern Nevada. A roundup opponents say is illegal and has left 31 Mustangs dead in 26 days. Wild Horse Education, a nonprofit seeking to protect the horses, has sued the Bureau of Land Management and is seeking a court order to temporarily halt the roundup halfway between Reno and Salt Lake City. Among other things, it says the agency is violating its own SAW. Below are your comments. Sometimes when I ride my ATV out in the desert, a small herd of wild horses will come and run alongside of me for a minute. It's a very pleasing experience. Having lived in the past for many years in Nevada, around the wild horses and having owned 5 that I broke and trained, I have never seen an area really adversely affected by them. They don't uproot grasses like sheep do. And sheep are allowed on BLM land and other areas, destroying the habitat. To call the herd. Obviously. If not, they face the same fate as many deer and elk populations with disease and limited winter grazing. I have seen herds decimated by hemorrhagic disease, CWD, brucellosis and other diseases. The effects are not pretty. In winter, thousands of individuals in deer corals on the high desert range. Now that is a first coral is usually found in the ocean. The mistreatment of animals is just wrong. These rules that are in place for the humane roundup of wild horses should be adhered to, especially in the current heatwave that we are experiencing. Next news. U.S. scientists repeat fusion ignition breakthrough for second time. 1 minute read. Scientists at the California-based lab repeated the fusion ignition breakthrough in an experiment in the National Ignition Facility, NIF, on July 30 that produced a higher energy yield than in December. A Lawrence Livermore spokesperson said. Lawrence Livermore achieved a net energy gain in a fusion experiment using lasers on deck 5, 2022. That experiment briefly achieved what's known as fusion ignition by generating 3.15 megajoules of energy output after the laser delivered 2.05 megajoules to. Below are your comments. A step at a time. Fusion energy when fully realized would change the energy metric completely. Plenty of water. Fascinating. Baby steps. Which I'm good with. We'll get there. By my calculations, we will achieve a sustainable fusion reaction in 20 years. So in 20 years, be sure to ask me again for my latest update. Next news. At least 16 bleep in landslide in Georgia. At least 16 people were bleep and dozens were missing after a landslide at a resort town in northwestern Georgia. Officials said Saturday. The landslide took place on Thursday in Chovy, a small resort town in Georgia's mountainous northwest famed for its vast forests and mineral water springs. 16 bodies have been found in the disaster area and their identification is underway, said Teimuraz Magabrishvili, from the Interior Ministry. Images showed rescue workers picking through debris parsha. Below are your comments. Need to specify, the country of Georgia, not the state Georgia. Yahoo is good at not giving state name country all the time. It takes a while to find out what state or country they are talking about. Who else jumped to the comments just to see who thought this was in the US? I'm honestly surprised there aren't any comments blaming either Joe, Donald, or possibly Hunter. Next news. Ukrainians move to North Dakota for oil field jobs to help families facing war back home. 6 minutes read. Maxim Bunchakov remembers hearing rockets explode in Zaporizhia as the war in Ukraine began. Now, about 18 months after the war broke out, Bunchakov is in North Dakota. Like thousands of Ukrainians who came over a century ago, 12 more Ukrainians are scheduled to arrive by August 15 as part of the North Dakota Petroleum Council's Bakken Global Recruitment of Oilfield Workers program. Below are your comments. How did these men get out of Ukraine? As all men up age 60 are not allowed to leave Ukraine. They are supposed to stay to defend their country. Seems like a lot of fighting-age Ukrainian people are abandoning their country instead of defending it. Why would they do that? Aren't they supposed to be fighting Russians back home? How were they able to leave? Interesting. I thought they wanted to shut down all these pipelines and those who got put out of work should learn to code. Next news. Trump flips out in hellishly bizarre new social media meltdown. I wasn't scared. 3 minutes read. The former president launched a strange new series of attacks on his Truth Social website. Below are your comments. Most presidents and presidential project optimism and hope for the future of the United States. With Trump, it's fire and brimstone, the very end of the world as we know it. Donnie's emotional development ended around age 8. Captain Bone Spurs is definitely showing his cowardice right now. I think all of these indictments are driving him even more insane. No one saw him on TV, because cameras were outlawed in the courtroom at his arraignment. So, no, millions of people did not see him on TV. Next news. Mitch McConnell mercilessly heckled during speech with chants of retire. Single quote. 2 minutes read. Kevin Worm, Reuters. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, RKY, was interrupted repeatedly by jeers during a breakfast speech in his home state of Kentucky Saturday, for what appeared to be the entirety of his appearance. While the Associated Press describes how McConnell arrived to a prolonged standing ovation and received a rousing welcome from the party faithful, he was also met with boos as he told the crowd that he and his wife, Elaine, were really excited to be back at the 143rd Ann. Below are your comments. I wonder if Mitch remembers when the people of Kentucky voted to protect women's reproductive rights and Republican politicians overturned them. I bet the people of Kentucky will certainly remember that when it's time to vote in the next election. I sure would. It's time to go, Mitch. I think this should be done to anyone over 80 in the Senate. The place has become an adult daycare center. Let it go, Mitch. Unfortunately, Republicans have only themselves to blame for creating and enabling the kind of reckless hooliganism that is no longer exclusively directed outward but is now also aimed at mainstream party members. The MAGA mob will turn on anybody at the drop of a hat. Next news. YMCA camp session canceled, allowing staff to deal with emotional trauma of Idaho bus crash. 2 minutes read. An upcoming YMCA summer camp session in Idaho has been canceled so staffers can deal with the emotional trauma of a bus crash that injured almost a dozen people, an official said Saturday, as police still tried to determine the cause. The bus was carrying about 30 adolescent campers and staff back to Boise from the Treasure Valley YMCA's camp at Horsethief Reservoir. 11 passengers were hospitalized, 7 in critical condition, after the bus rolled over on a winding Idaho highway north of. Below are your comments. The crash blocked both lanes of Highway 55 for hours on Friday. The 2-lane road is one of the state's 2 major north-south routes, and it is frequently packed with weekend travelers headed from the Boise region to vacation destinations or popular campsites. The only detour around this blockage, as unfortunate as the accident was, camp should continue as life must go on. Children grow at alarming rates and opportunities to enrich their lives should never be missed. I agree. This will teach the children that to deal with adversity are hard things. One retreats from life and dwells on the issue. Continuing to camp with a crisis debriefing the first night and an available crisis counselor at camp would have made this a better outcome in my opinion. I've dealt with. I drove a school bus and taught driver's education for 10 years. Next news. A $700 million superyacht linked to Putin was seized in Italy last year. It's being treated to a refurb while it waits. And authorities won't say who's paying for it. 2 Minutes read. The owner of the Scheherazade yacht is Eduard Kudainatov, but he is merely the straw owner of the vessel, per Bloomberg. Below are your comments. Meaning that unnamed owner is paying the Italian authorities a fortune in bribes to be able to continue the retrofit, sell it immediately and give the proceeds to the Ukrainians. Take it to a suitable location, drain the fuel and sink it to make a beautiful artificial reef. Making them dock their yachts for a time is no sanction at all. These yachts should have been seized and sold off. Sell that and use the proceeds to help Ukraine's civilians and children. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you like it, please thumbs up.